Hey, listen, here's why I'm here, and I'll get more specific than the gentleman that spoke before you, which I just learned about Mr. Jones's issue here in a letter that he sent. It's been ongoing for Mr. Trout several months, is it, or even longer maybe. And anybody, Pam, Trish, Mr. Trout, if you want to correct me, so you can go ahead. Just to give you some fast track information on this. They were going to build it out there across from the Sheriff's Department on county land, but it was in a flood zone, so they timed it out, thought it went away. Came back to us, they said we're going to build it out, the Decker plan out there. We had it, and I called a timeout. I said, hey, come on, you're not notifying anybody. Lime Creek's a precious place, and to have a training facility, whether it's going to be used by the fire department or the drug task force or anybody else, on weekends, and we have some high rent district on Carolina above the Winnebago River. I said, you got to notify people. So they did. They sent out notification to everybody and to the board of Lime Creek, I understand, and they didn't receive any issues about it at all. Said go ahead and build it. There's a sign posted out there that was the intentions of going to be. Rob, I think you've seen that sign out there before. That's going to build out here at that site. It's where you go to Lime Creek, Carroll, where you go and walk the trail. It's back there, sitting on that level ground. Well, they found out that the soil didn't come back, didn't look too good, so they didn't want to mess with that. Then they move it out to, nobody really knew about it. They moved it out to NIACC. The chief forgot to tell us about it, that it was being moved. And one night I stood up at a council meeting, and at the end of the meeting I said, hey, what are we having, two of these? One at NIACC and one at, oh, sorry. So we got a memo the next day saying that we're going to move out here, we're going to go team up with NIACC and blah, blah, blah. So what happened is, here's the frustration of it all. NIACC had, basically, they've come before the Development Review Committee with a preliminary site plan, and our staff has done a fine job of talking about the things that we need to see to make it environmentally significant and work well within our comprehensive plan. Well, NIACC is sort of keeping on spinning the wheels, and what's making the neighbors out there nervous in Eastbrook is the fact that they held their board meeting last month in Osage, which I'm sure they do because that's their territory, they rotate. Well, they passed it up there, and they made a point of saying in their minutes that, you know, little or no, there was no really any concerns about it. I think the assistant deputy fire chief of Mason City said, well, there's a water issue and maybe something else, and we're going to take care of that. Well, they're summing it up by the fact that they're going to burn 2 or 3 pallets at a time and take 35 gallons of water to put that out to create smoke in the tower so they can practice, and do that several times a day while they're training. No, the issue is the water issue, and we already know, those of us that live in Mason City know that Eastbrook's got a water issue. Even those that have lived there their whole lives know that I would never buy a house out there at all, anywhere near Radio Park or that area. So this is a big concern. We feel like there's nobody's going to give us a chance to talk, speak, or do anything. Now, after some communication with Mr. Trout's setting up as having a meeting with the stakeholders this Thursday to talk about some issues. And then within the next 2 weeks, there's going to be a citizens group meet, probably at NIACC, we hope. One of the frustrations is Dr. Deb Deere has not gotten back to anybody that we know, and she's been notified many, many times and with requests, and hasn't let anybody know what's going on. So everybody's getting a little nervous. So we'll have this meeting in 2 weeks probably. Is that correct, Brent? 2 weeks after Thursday? Hopefully. And so we'll all get to go there and talk and let the people talk about their quality of life. What I'm looking for from you folks is and it wasn't mentioned before by the two gentlemen, is a letter of support. And the reason I say that is because on the city webpage it says to protect, enhance quality of life issues. That's what your job is. It says right on the Mason City's webpage. And then in this Environmental Stewardship Advisory Commission, Chapter 16, 2.16.4, the subtitles under it, A, to develop and articulate proposed goals, objectives, policies for stewardship of the city's environmental and its ecological systems for present and future generations. This is going to impact present and future generations out there with the watershed. B, to advise and inform the City Council on environmental stewardship issues, which you've done before with spraying of herbicides, and you did a great job on that. And E, on here, is to write input and advice to all boards and commissions regarding environmental stewardship issues in the comprehensive plan. Well, this clearly is impacted into the comprehensive plan part of it, and what's going on, how we build out and how we're doing it. In our 4 gateways to Mason City, what we want to see there and how we want to do it. So what I'm requesting you is a letter of support that all the T's and I's get dotted, T's get crossed, and citizens' concerns are put to rest before this structure can be built. What I understand is, yes, it's a $511,000 grant. It's to be used by this June. They've already got the low bid, or a bid on the building itself at $200-some thousand. What hasn't been bid out yet is the excavation and foundation work and site planning and how they're going to handle the water runoffs. So that's yet to come. Once that's completed, they're just basically a permit and a site review by staff and the final site plan of building. So that those things don't really include much neighborhood input and the concerns that they're getting. And by the way, those concerns are growing each day. More and more people, and I want to tell you this also, people out there are hesitant to talk about NIACC, their neighbors, and NIACC is a big neighbor. And so people are a little dubious about the situation they're thrusted in. And so that's why they contact their elected officials. That's what we do. You pay taxes for representation. Mr. Wilcox does bring a fine point if you'd want to put it in your letter also. Some of you are familiar with the campus out there. They do have hundreds of acres of land. There's no reason why this could not be planted on the east side of College Drive, on flat level ground off of California Avenue, which really wouldn't impact the traffic on 122 or the entrance into Mason City. So they have that farmland out there too. I'm not sure they had it all in farm in grain this year or not. I know the cross-country team practices on that field. So they have many options out there if they want to partner and use that site. So I would hope, and I'm requesting, that you guys can write a letter of support to, and co-copy it to NIACC, Deborah Deere, and city staff here, and the fire station, and then so we can have that as, you know, everybody's trying to do this, work this thing out. I don't think anybody disagrees with that it's not a good idea. We all are pretty supportive of it. You know, you can't have enough training. You know, you'll ask that when a tragedy happens, you know. So we want to protect our citizens too, but we also want to make sure that the quality of life issues are addressed with the, and that's one of the reasons why I believe the Environmental Commission was put in place, was to do those things. And it's a tough job that you have too. You found that out when you wrote the letter about herbicides and the response that happened and what the city went and did anyway, and you know where you're at on that issue. So I would hope that you can support the neighborhood and council members with the letter.